My name is Becky Wilson. I'm 32 years old and I live in Texas. And for most of my life, I've existed in a strange, quiet space inside my own family. Close enough to be useful, but never close enough to be celebrated. I have an older sister, Amanda. She's 3 years older than me, and from the moment we were kids, it was clear who my parents believed was special. Amanda had this effortless way of moving through the world. She smiled and people smiled back. Teachers adored her. Neighbors called her a joy. My parents talked about her like she was proof they'd done something right. Me? I was the responsible one. That was the word they used most often. Responsible, mature, independent. Words that sound complimentary until you realize they're just another way of saying you'll be fine without us. Growing up, the favoritism wasn't always loud, but it was constant. Amanda's birthdays were events. Big backyard parties with rented bounce houses, themed decorations, and friends spilling out onto the lawn. My birthdays were quieter. Pizza at the dining room table, a store-bought cake. My mom would pat my shoulder and say, "You don't need all that extra stuff, Becky. You're easy." Easy became my role. Christmas told the same story every year. Amanda got the expensive gifts, the Barbie dream house, new electronics, brand name clothes. I got practical things, or secondhand versions of whatever she'd already had. Once, when I was 10, I remember opening a knockoff dollhouse with a missing door. I tried not to look disappointed, but my mom noticed anyway. "It still works," she said, smiling like that settled it. That sentence stuck with me. It still works. That's how they saw me. Functional, reliable, replaceable. The gap between Amanda and me became impossible to ignore when we hit college. I worked myself to exhaustion in high school. AP classes, late nights, weekends spent studying while Amanda went out with friends. I earned my acceptance to a local university and decided to commute from home to save money. It felt logical, responsible. Amanda, meanwhile, got into her dream school out of state. My parents paid for everything: tuition, dorm, meal plan, spending money. They bragged about it constantly, telling everyone how proud they were of her. I assumed, foolishly, that they'd help me too. When I sat down with my mom to explain my plan, she barely looked up from the counter. "If you're staying here," she said, "you'll need to contribute." Contribute turned out to mean $400 a month for rent and utilities, plus my own groceries. I was 18, working part-time at a bookstore for $9 an hour. I reminded her that Amanda hadn't paid a cent while she was in school. Mom shrugged. "We gave Amanda what she needed," she said. "You're different. You're independent. You'll figure it out." And I did. I worked extra shifts, skipped meals, bought used textbooks or borrowed them from the library. I drove a car with broken air conditioning through Texas summers because I couldn't afford to fix it. Every month, I handed over that $400 while Amanda lived in a brand new dorm and called home to complain about how the air conditioning was too cold. My parents sent her extra money so she wouldn't struggle. I stood in the kitchen once, holding a pack of instant ramen, listening to my mom say over the phone, "College is hard enough. We don't want her stressed." I remember wondering when exactly that compassion had decided I didn't deserve it. When Amanda graduated with a 3.2 GPA in communications, my parents threw her a massive party. Catered food, music, decorations. They invited half the town. When I graduated with a 3.9 GPA and a degree in computer science, we had a quiet dinner at home. My mom made lasagna and said, "We don't need to make a fuss." That was the moment it finally clicked. It wasn't about money. It was about value. After college, I moved out as fast as I could. A tiny apartment near my first job, cheap furniture, long hours. I worked hard, saved aggressively, and built my life piece by piece without expecting anything from my family, because I'd learned not to. Amanda married Tyler, a man my parents adored, despite the fact that he never seemed to hold a job for long. They had 3 kids, and my parents stepped in the way they always had for Amanda, babysitting every weekend, financial bailouts, endless sympathy. When Amanda complained about being overwhelmed, my parents dropped everything to help. No matter what I accomplished, I was still second place. That's why I stopped sharing details about my life with them. Promotions, raises, goals, dreams. I kept it all quiet, including the biggest decision I'd ever made. After years of renting a glorified shoebox, I finally decided it was time to buy a house. I didn't tell my family, not because I was hiding anything, but because I knew exactly what would happen if I did. My achievements always turned into group property in their eyes. Anything I had was something Amanda deserved to benefit from too. The only person who knew was my boyfriend, Mark. He listened as I talked about listings, budgets, and neighborhoods. And one night he squeezed my hand and said, "You've worked for this, Becky. It should be yours." I believed him. What I didn't know was that even silence wouldn't protect me. Because the moment my family found out I was house hunting, they didn't see it as my future. They saw it as theirs. And that realization would turn my life upside down. If there's one thing I should have learned by 32, it's that silence doesn't equal safety, especially in a family like mine. I didn't announce my house search. I didn't hint at it on social media. I didn't even tell extended relatives. I treated it like a private milestone, something just for me. After years of having my accomplishments repackaged as shared resources, I wanted one thing that stayed mine from start to finish. For a while, it worked. I spent my evenings scrolling through listings, learning neighborhoods, running numbers. On weekends, I visited open houses alone, parking a block away just in case someone recognized my car. I avoided anything remotely close to Amanda's area. The last thing I needed was news traveling through the family grapevine. Apparently, I underestimated how small the world really is. A coworker, Dana, someone who thrived on gossip disguised as concern, let it slip that I was thinking about buying. She didn't mean any harm, I'm sure. She was the kind of person who treated other people's lives like conversational seasoning. What she didn't realize was that the person she mentioned it to just happened to be Amanda's neighbor. From there, it spread like wildfire. A few days later, my mom called me, her voice unnaturally cheerful. "Becky," she said, drawing my name out. "Why didn't you tell us you're looking for a house?" My stomach dropped. I played dumb. "I'm just browsing," I said. "Nothing serious." "Oh," she replied quickly. "Well, Amanda and I have been talking, and we have some wonderful ideas for you." That was my first warning sign. She launched right into it like she'd rehearsed. "You'll need something big enough for everyone, at least 4 bedrooms. The kids need space, and it would be nice if there was a guest room for us." I gripped my phone. "What kids?" I asked. "I don't have kids." She laughed like I was being silly. "Well, Amanda's kids, of course. And it would be best if it was close to her place, for convenience." There it was. My future, already rewritten to fit Amanda's life. After that call, the floodgates opened. Every day, my phone buzzed with links, texts from my mom, messages from Amanda, huge houses, 5 bedrooms, pools, 3-car garages, prices so high I wondered if they thought I'd secretly won the lottery. "This one would be perfect for us," Amanda texted once, attaching a 6-bedroom listing. "This neighborhood has great schools," my mom added another time. "Think of the kids." Not once did anyone ask what I wanted. I tried at first to redirect them. I told them I was looking for something small, cozy, just for me. That only made things worse. "Oh, don't be selfish," my mom replied. "You don't need all that space, but Amanda does." That was when I stopped responding. I muted the group chat and focused on my own search. I went back to trusting my instincts. And eventually, I found it. A small 2-bedroom cottage just outside the city. A quiet street. A sunny kitchen. A little porch that felt like it belonged in a movie. The backyard was modest, but perfect for a garden. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't big. It felt like home. The moment I walked in, something settled in my chest. I put in an offer that night. The waiting nearly broke me, but when the acceptance came through, I cried alone in my car. Not out of stress, but relief. For the first time in my life, I'd chosen something without permission. I didn't tell my family. I let them keep sending their suggestions while I signed paperwork and planned my move in silence. It felt like a small rebellion, a harmless one. Then my mom called again. "We're having dinner next weekend," she said. "You're coming." I almost declined. Every instinct told me to, but a part of me, the part that still hoped for reason, thought maybe this was the moment to clear the air. I showed up right on time, bracing myself. The house was chaos the moment I walked in. Amanda's kids were running through the living room screaming. Tyler was sprawled on the couch watching TV. My mom barely glanced at me. "Oh, good," she said. "You're on time for once." We sat down to eat. Small talk, complaints. Amanda talked about how cramped their apartment was, how exhausted she felt, how unfair everything was. I knew what was coming. My mom cleared her throat. "Becky," she said, smiling too brightly, "we think we found the perfect house for you." Amanda jumped in. "It's gorgeous. 5 bedrooms, huge yard, only a few blocks from us." "It's perfect for everyone," my mom added. "Plenty of space for the kids. Tyler could have an office." They talked like the decision was already made. That's when I put my fork down. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I already bought a house." The room went silent. "What?" my mom snapped. "I bought a house," I repeated. "A 2-bedroom cottage. It's perfect for me." Amanda stared at me like I'd spoken another language. "A cottage?" she said. "How are we supposed to fit in a cottage?" "You're not," I said quietly. "It's my house." My mom's face turned red. "How could you make such a big decision without consulting us?" "Because it wasn't your decision," I replied. "You weren't helping me. You were planning for Amanda." Amanda's voice went shrill. "But we need this, Becky. It's not fair to the kids." "That's not my responsibility," I said, standing up. "I've worked for this. I'm not giving it up." My dad slammed his hand on the table. "You're being selfish." I looked at him and realized something had shifted permanently. "I'm finally choosing myself," I said. "If that makes me selfish, so be it." I walked out as Amanda cried and my mom shouted after me. I drove home shaking, but lighter than I'd felt in years. I didn't know yet that this was only the beginning. The backlash started before I even made it home. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot, my phone was already lighting up. Missed calls, texts stacking on top of each other. I didn't open any of them. I knew better. I'd lived long enough in my family's emotional ecosystem to recognize the pattern. First came shock, then outrage, then guilt, served hot and nonstop. That night, Amanda texted me a photo of her kids sitting on their couch, toys scattered everywhere, faces tired and sticky. "Look how cramped we are," the caption read. "Is this fair to Emily and Mason?" I stared at the picture longer than I should have. Not because it convinced me, but because it hurt. I'd spent most of my life being trained to feel responsible for everyone else's discomfort. This was just the latest version of that lesson. I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up to 5 missed calls from my mom and a string of messages from Amanda. "You've changed. I don't recognize you anymore." Mom cried all night. Family is supposed to matter. That one almost got me. Almost. By noon, my dad chimed in with a voicemail that lasted nearly 6 minutes. I didn't listen to all of it. I didn't need to. The tone alone told me everything. Disappointment dressed up as authority. The messages kept coming, every few hours like clockwork. My mom texted paragraphs about how selfish I was, about how much Amanda was struggling, about how the kids didn't deserve this. She suggested more than once that it wasn't too late to sell my house and buy something more appropriate for the family. That's when I muted them. Not blocked, not yet, just muted. I still wasn't ready to accept that my own family would never respect a boundary unless it was enforced with consequences. A few days later, the pressure widened. My aunt, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, called me out of the blue. "I heard what's going on," she said. "Family comes first, Becky. You should help your sister." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. This was a woman who'd barely remembered my birthday growing up, suddenly invested in my moral obligations. "I'm not discussing this," I said and hung up. Then came social media. Amanda posted a photo of her kids squeezed into a bunk bed, captioned, "All they want is a little space to grow. It's sad when people forget what family means." The comments poured in: sympathy, praise, indirect condemnation. People who didn't know me, judging me through a carefully cropped image and a few loaded words. I stayed silent until my mom crossed the line. She posted a photo of my house. I don't know how she got it. Maybe from public records, maybe from someone she knew. All I know is that suddenly my home, my sanctuary, was on display with a caption that read, "It's heartbreaking when someone forgets where they came from. Family sacrifices so much, and this is how they're repaid." I blocked them all immediately, but the damage was done. A coworker messaged me asking if everything was okay. Apparently, Dana had been gossiping at work again. Half the office now thought I'd abandoned my struggling family to live alone in a mansion. I wanted to scream. My house was a cottage, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, nothing extravagant. The stress crept into everything. I jumped every time my phone buzzed. I stopped checking social media. Even at work, I found myself bracing for the next hit. Then, one evening, there was a knock on my door. I opened it and froze. Amanda stood there, holding her youngest on her hip. The other 2 kids clung to her legs. She looked exhausted, worn down. For a second, just one, I felt that old instinct rise up, the urge to fix it. "Becky," she said, her voice breaking, "we need to talk." I crossed my arms and stayed in the doorway. "What do you want, Amanda?" She swallowed. "The landlord's raising our rent again. We can't afford it. Just let us stay with you for a little while. The kids need stability." I took a slow breath. "My house isn't an option," I said. "It's not big enough. And this isn't my responsibility." Her face hardened. "So that's it? You're just going to let us suffer?" "I'm not letting you suffer," I said quietly. "I'm refusing to give up my life to fix yours." She muttered something under her breath and turned away, dragging the kids with her. The next morning, my mom called, using a blocked number. "You're heartless," she said. "You'll regret this." I hung up. That night, as I sat alone in my new house, I realized something had changed. Not them, me. And they weren't done yet. For a few days after Amanda showed up at my door, things went eerily quiet. No texts, no calls, no vague posts dripping with guilt. I should have known better. Silence had never meant acceptance in my family. It meant planning. That Saturday morning started like any other. I was in my backyard, kneeling in the dirt, trying and failing to plant lavender. I remember laughing at myself, thinking how ridiculous it was that I could debug complex code but couldn't keep a plant alive. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders felt relaxed. The house felt peaceful again. Then I left to run errands. Groceries, Target, post office. Ordinary things. I was gone maybe 2 hours. When I pulled back into my driveway, my stomach dropped. Amanda's SUV was parked right in front of my house. At first, my brain refused to process it. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel, hoping I was mistaken. But then I saw the kids' car seats through the window. My hands started shaking. I walked up to the door, bag still in my arms, fumbling with my keys. That's when I heard voices. Inside my house. I pushed the door open and stepped into chaos. Emily and Mason were sprawled across my couch, surrounded by snacks and toys that definitely didn't belong to them. My throw pillows were on the floor. Zach was toddling around the living room, gnawing on one of them. Tyler stood in my kitchen, refrigerator door open, eating a sandwich like he owned the place. And Amanda? She was in the sunroom, rearranging my furniture. "Oh, hey, Becky," she said casually, like I'd just come home early from work. "You're back already." My vision blurred. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded. She didn't even flinch. "We figured it would be easier to just move in while you were out." I stared at her. "Move in?" She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Mom gave us the key. She said it was fine. We really need the space, and your house makes the most sense." I felt something snap. "The key?" I said slowly. "What key?" "The spare," she replied, nodding toward the counter. the one I'd left there during my mom's apology visit. You weren't using it. Tyler finally looked at me. You're single, he said. You don't need all this space. This house works way better for us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Get out, I said. Amanda laughed. Becky, don't be dramatic. We're family. The kids already love it here. Get out of my house, I repeated, louder. She crossed her arms. We're already settling in. It's not like you were using all this space anyway. That was it. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. Amanda's eyes widened. Are you serious right now? Completely, I said, holding the phone up so she could see. When the police arrived, I stood quietly while Amanda tried to explain. We're family, she kept saying, like it was a legal argument. Tyler complained about fairness, about space, about how I was selfish. The officers didn't care. They told them they were trespassing and had to leave immediately, Amanda cried. Tyler muttered insults under his breath. The kids whined as they were herded out. I watched in silence as they packed up the food they'd stolen and filed out of my front door. One of the officers asked if I wanted to press charges. I thought about it. No, I said. I just want them gone. After they left, I locked the door and slid down against it, shaking. My house felt violated, contaminated, like something sacred had been trampled without a second thought. That afternoon, I changed every lock. The next day, I installed a security system. Then I called a lawyer. A formal cease and desist letter went out to my mom, Amanda, and Tyler. It outlined everything: the harassment, the trespassing, the key. It made one thing very clear. Any further contact would be handled legally. I haven't heard from them since. Sometimes that still hurts. But standing in my quiet house, doors locked, boundaries finally solid, I understand something now that took me decades to learn. Love doesn't demand sacrifice without consent. Family doesn't mean access. And choosing myself wasn't cruelty. It was survival.